The localization of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 did a pretty interesting thing, where in order to make all the different countries in the game seem more unique, they gave each one a specific accent that all the characters from that country would speak in. All of these accents are, for the most part, different regions of the United Kingdom where the localization was done and the dub was recorded. The Empire of More Ardain happened to get Scotland and the Scottish accent, and it turns out that a good chunk of names related to More Ardain are actually derived from the Scottish Gaelic language, as well as a healthy dose from its sister language, Irish. I first discovered this when I made that Podrake video a while back for a one-off joke, but there were so many that I decided I actually want to make a video about them now. So basically, this is just going to be me going through a list of names related to and connected to More Ardain, and seeing whether or not they derive from Scottish or Irish, whether or not they don't, if the names make sense, translating them, all that kind of stuff. Pronunciation-wise, I'm going to be terrible. I do apparently have some Irish ancestry, but I'm also like a 5th or 6th generation immigrant on both sides of the family, so I'm American through and through. The only language I know how to speak properly is English, and definitely not that half the time too. Spoiler-wise, any cutscenes are going to be out of context, and all you're really going to see me do is walk around More Ardain and interact with Ardainian characters and NPCs in both the base game and Torn of the Golden Country, so it's 100% location spoilers only. That's about it. That out of the way though, let's get into the most obvious one, being More Ardain itself. This name comes from a Scottish Gaelic term for pride, which seemingly derives from roots involving being in high places or above something, which etymologically makes perfect sense for pride to develop from that, because if you are proud, you think you are above others, which is kind of cool. This is also a direct translation of the Japanese name Superbia, as that is Latin for the deadly sin of pride. Every nation, as well as a bunch of other regions in Xenoblade 2, has a name that is either one of the 7 deadly sins or one of the heavenly virtues. In the Japanese version of the game, all of these names are just the Latin words for those terms, but in the English localization, a good chunk of them, I believe all but maybe 1 or 2, were translated into a variety of different languages to make them seem a bit more unique. Sometimes the language translations make perfect sense, like the Scottish accented More Ardain getting its sin translated into Scottish, but then you've got the Welsh accented Gormot having its sin of gluttony translated through a French root word, so I don't really know what's going on there, but either way, pride fits More Ardain very well, because it's the only nation calling itself an empire. It frequently invades other nations, seems to have a much higher view of itself than most of the other nations do, and it also generally tends to force its patriotism on anyone a lot more than the other countries. And also, Morag's father in the backstory definitely holds up to basically living out the deadly sin of pride in his daily life. Next though, let's move on to the current emperor as of the main game of Xenoblade 2, Niall Ardanak. The name Niall is more Irish in origin, but it is a male given name. Its exact meaning is unknown, but it's guessed to be derived from words meaning champion, passionate, or cloud. So unless this is a super oblique Final Fantasy reference, the one that most fits the character is definitely passionate, which you'd be able to tell if you'd spent 2 minutes with the guy. His last name, Ardanak, does seem to come from the same root as the Ardain part of More Ardain, and from what I can gather seems to mean proud, the adjective, as opposed to pride, the noun, but either way, it does seem to be tied a lot more into the name of the country, rather than anything connected to the character. It's unknown if the royal family takes the name in reference to the country, or if the empire was named after the family who founded it and rules over it, and the fact that Hugo has the same last name and was an earlier emperor much closer to the founding of the nation doesn't help anything either. Next though, we've got Alba Kavanik, the capital of the empire. This is a bit of an interesting one. I could not find anything about Kavanik. All that I was really finding were name origins for the last names of Cavendish and Cavendish, which I don't think have the same root and don't seem to be connected to anything at all, but Alba, on the other hand, can mean a bunch of different things. It is an actual name derived from Latin meaning white, which doesn't fit the steampunky Ardainian capital, but it does fit the idea of a shining beacon of imperial power and is also one of the primary colors of Niall's uniform. My gut feeling is that Kavnik is supposed to mean capital, and White Capital does totally sound like a city name, but the weird part is that Alba is also just the Scottish word for Scotland, so I really don't know what's going on here. I doubt they'd intentionally put the name of Scotland into a fantasy culture that's only borrowing Scottish names and doesn't actually try to be a counterpart to Scottish culture, but without knowing what Kavnik actually means, there's no way to tell what form of Alba is being used. It could also sort of be like country center, country heart, like some weird term for capital city in general, in which case they just used Alba and Kavnik to mean something there, so Alba referring to country, not Scotland. But in that case, they could have probably just done like Ardainian Kavnik or Ardainian Kavnik or something like that. I really don't know what's going on here. Next, though, we've got Smuid, which is the name of a geothermally active mountain and hot spring area in Alba Kavnik. This one is surprisingly straightforward because it's just the Scottish Gaelic word for steam, which, you know, makes a lot of sense. Next off, we've got Naharl. I don't know, the name of the central plaza of the capital. I can't find anything concrete here, but if you plug that word into Scots Gaelic through English in Google Translate, you get rolling. So I don't know, it could be like stone related or something related to moving forward, progress type thing. I don't know, just spitballing here, those would make a bit of sense to me. Admar is the name of the storage area in Alba Kavnik. This does not seem to be anything in any relevant languages, but there is an Admar Construction Equipment and Supplies based in New York State with a location like 20 minutes away from where I'm recording this. So in my headcanon at least, that company just also exists in Allrest, and that's where their Alba Kavnik location has its warehouse. Next up we have Hardhigh, the name of the palace the royal family lives in. There's again nothing super concrete for here, but Google Translate again gives elevated, which does make sense. Hard alone means high in Irish, and possibly also Scottish, and high with that spelling is an obsolete English name meaning on high, so it's definitely something related to regalness and being above others in a sense, or it's just tying back into the root word for More Ardain itself. Valdorm. Valdorm's Mound is a location on the lower level of the Titan, and a lot of things that I'm skipping over that I just couldn't find a good translation for were ones where Googling name meaning just gave like 5 pages of Xenoblade 2 related results of people trying to find stuff. This one, on the other hand, even if there is an actual legit meaning behind it, I would not be able to tell you, because even the Xenoblade 2 related results were buried this time because Valdorm is also the name of a drug, so this is just my way of saying this one was a complete wash. Next we've got Midoril, which is the name of the bridge connecting the capital to the rest of the upper level of the Titan. This does not seem to be anything relevant, but it is worth noting that it's one letter off of the romanization of Midori, which is Japanese for green or greenery, and also Sitanuzuki's daughter. This could mean that it was named after plant life that surrounded the bridge way back in the day, but it's now all died because of the desertification of the Titan, and without really knowing what all the Japanese names for the locations are, there's not really a way of testing the theory, but it would make sense to me if they didn't translate every location into Scottish, or they just made up names for a bunch of them and this just happened to go along with that kind of thing. Moving on to the enemies of More Ardain, and no, we're not about to go into all the Orion names, we have Brianak, one of the 2 factions fighting against Imperial rule. This is one of the names for a spear wielded by Lu, a mythical Irish hero. This makes sense. Weapons are frequently symbols of rebellion for very obvious reasons. These are very obviously violent rebels, so there you go. For the most part, Irish and Scottish are used completely interchangeably when it comes to the names here, so them using a legendary Irish weapon instead of a legendary Scottish one, just, I don't know. At this point, why not? The other anti-imperial faction, though, is Lindworm, which is a bit different because it's not actually derived from Irish or Scottish. It is the German word for dragon, as well as being a type of serpent or dragon-like figure in various European mythologies, sometimes spelled a little differently, sometimes pronounced a little differently, but obviously having the same root from some old Germanic language. Then we've got Vil Ethelmar, I don't think there's any significance here, but it does seem that the last name of the Special Inquisitor back in Torna the Golden Country is at least a real legitimate last name, although I could not tell if it's actually Gallic in origin. Yeah, that's all I got for that one. Then we've got Bothain, which I very, very unfortunately couldn't find anything for, because he is one of my favorite minor NPCs since he's a great example of continuity. He appears as a rank-and-file Ardainian soldier NPC in Torna, who asks to spar with the party just to get a chance to prove himself and all that stuff, and eventually vows to become someone that others look up to. And then later on in the main game, or really earlier, you could see a watchtower named after him in Alba Kavanagh, proving that he did actually succeed, which is really nice. It's a completely unnecessary continuity nod, but just makes me love all the little details they like putting in the games even more. And it's really unfortunate that you couldn't actually get a name origin for this, because he is one of my favorite minor NPCs, and I think he kind of deserves to have his name known. But weirdly enough, when I googled Bothain, like even just as one word, it gave me the explanation behind all those bathe in milk ads. So I think Google might just have been drunk today when I started looking up this stuff, and there might be easier ways to find out some of these names. Then, moving from rank and file to emperor, we have Hugo. This is not a name Gallic in origin, but actually one that's Germanic in origin, deriving from words meaning mind or intellect. This does fit him decently well, but this could have also not been the original intent of the people who came up with this name, because certain languages turn Hugo into Hugh, and Hugh is also the Anglicization of an Irish and Scottish name I can't even begin to pronounce, meaning fire, which is very, very fitting of Brigid's driver. From Brigid's driver to Brigid, though, she carries the name of a goddess of Ireland, member of the Tuatha De Danann, who is associated with a lot of different things, but most importantly to this video, fire. There's also a Christian Saint Brigid, who is a patron saint of Ireland, who is believed to possibly be a Christianization of the goddess, or a transference of some of her qualities to an actual saint, and she is also associated with flames, which makes perfect sense. These are both good adaptations of her Japanese name, Kagutsuchi, who is a Shinto fire deity. So basically, instead of everything being Japanese named, they just transferred her name to Scottish like they did with a bunch of the other names of stuff related to Mordain. Aegeon, though, is weird because he is a Greek name, not a Scottish one, but also coming from mythology. He's the name of one of the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed giants, and this one in particular seems to have had a big connection to Poseidon and the ocean, so his name does make sense. I don't know if it comes from the same root as the Aegean Sea, but that would make sense to me. I don't know. I didn't look into Greek stuff this time, I'm sorry. There's already a bunch of stuff. And this is again a decent adaptation of his Japanese name, Wadutsumi, who is a Japanese water deity. I, of course, saved the two most important Ardainians for last, and while I did already make a video on Padraig, he is important to include here anyway. He's nothing super special or deep though, because Padraig is just an alternate form of Patrick, a name coming from St. Patrick, making it another Irish one, and by extension, the Latin patrician, meaning aristocrat or nobleman. These names don't fit the character very well though. It's likely they just wanted to give him a common given name, and they were just like, yeah, let's just take that one. Last though, we have the Special Inquisitor Morag Ladair. Morag is straight up a Scottish Gaelic female given name. It's sometimes translated into other languages as Marion or Sarah, but it's very clear that the intent was for the actual original Scottish meaning, because it comes from a root word meaning great or eminent, which definitely fits the Flamebringer, greatest driver in the nation, Special Inquisitor, and member of the royal house. It's also a very clever translation of her Japanese name. In Japanese, Morag's name is Melef, which is just flame pronounced in a Japanese accent with the syllables switched. Medefu Fureme. This keeps the fire-related stuff in her name, while also being an actual name from the culture her accent in the dub is derived from, and is, in my opinion, an instance of very good localization. Ladair, on the other hand, is a bit less cut and dry. It's very likely derived from the Scottish Gaelic Ladir, which means strong and would be a completely fitting name for her, but unless this is just an alternate form of that word, Ladare on its own is actually a different thing. It's the plural form of Ladar. What does Ladar mean? Ladle. Her name is almost certainly supposed to mean great strength, or eminent strength, or strong eminence, or something related to fire, or something like that. But depending on the translation, it can also be great spoons, which I can't top, so I think this is also a great place to end the video. Thank you all so much for watching as always. This, it might not seem like it, but was actually a very, very spur-of-the-moment decision. I know I said that if there would be 2 videos in the next 2 weeks, one of them would be Xenogears Recap and one of them would be Rex vs. Cross vs. Shulk, but I didn't have time to finish that one and was originally planning on just doing the Xenogears Recap. However, due to recent events, let's just say, some of the stuff I talked about in the recap would come off as extremely tone-deaf and disrespectful, so I ended up delaying that by a week. You'll see what I'm talking about when that video actually comes out. It'll be coming out next week, the normal time, no big deal. I actually finished editing and rendering that video, but just out of respect, I chose to delay it. Nothing really beyond that. I had to put another video in there, and there's no way I could finish the 10K special in time, so I just thought of an idea I had and was like, hey, let's go for it. But yeah, that's all I got. Like, comment, subscribe as usual. If you're still watching for some reason, I don't know why you are. Get hyped for that video. Yeah, till next time, this is Luxin signing off. I wish I was smarter and had, like, actual things to say here, but I don't, so goodbye.